All right. Well, I want to welcome everyone to the August edition of the Central Appalachian Network's peer-to-peer webinar series. My name is Adam Kody. I am the Director of Operations at the Appalachian Center for Economic Networks, also known as ACEnet. We are very excited to have you all here joining us today. We have a great group of presenters that's going to share some more information about some specific topics related to regulatory compliance and demystifying it, hopefully making it more digestible. These having worked with a lot of clients, farmers, food producers over the years, and knowing what the learning curve can be and, how difficult it is sometimes to find the correct information. I think webinars like this are valuable. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all. Okay. And can everybody see this? Can I get a thumbs up from maybe one of my co-panelists if this looks good on your end?
It does.
Looks good. Okay, great. So yeah, we're excited to be hosting this peer-to-peer series as a whole, but this is a topic that is close to my heart. It is something that is, a lot of the folks that we see at AceNet, working with startup food businesses, farmers, a lot of those first few meetings are around questions about regulatory requirements, certifications, and just basically find out what is the right path, right, to get down towards making someone compliant and having all their ducks in a row. So I'm going to do a quick kind of broad high level overview before I do pass it off to our presenters here today. And I want to start off with a slide which just asks the question, why do certifications and compliance matter? I think first and foremost, it protects you, your business, but it protects your customers as well. There's policies, procedures, food codes that have been put in place. And the reason those exist is to protect the consumer. And if you work with your regulator, with your inspectors to ensure that you're following those rules, then it gives you and your consumers peace of mind that you're putting a safe product out there into the marketplace. And goes hand in hand with that. It builds trust with the buyers, with the consumers. If you have a stamp of inspection on your product or can present, a good inspection report, that can certainly go a long way, especially as you work your way up into new markets, right? Schools, retailers, institutions. The more inspection oversight that you have, if you maybe you're going as far as getting something like a third party audit, this can really open new doors to new markets who could really drive sales for your business. And then it could also help avoid costly mistakes or legal issues, right? We never want to find ourselves in a place where we are having to, deal with any kind of legal issue, but especially one related to food safety and compliance. And I think it's important to think about regulators. This is one thing that I tell, every business I meet with in the intake meeting. Think of them as partners, right? They're valuable resources. They're not just there to enforce the law. They're also there to help you find solutions, right? To help you find to work with you as opposed to against you, I guess I would say. The earlier that you engage with your regulator, this can help you save time, save money, save stress. The last thing you want to do is invest all this money and effort and time into putting a product together only to find out that you got your label wrong, right? You have to go back. Maybe you printed out 1,000 labels. There's something missing. You didn't check with your regulator first, right? So make sure that they're with you along every step of the way. And then having that strong relationship with the regulator can be incredibly helpful for when challenges do arise, right? If you have your local area inspector, on speed dial, you guys are on good terms, and You've built up a working relationship. Being able to make that phone call and know that they're going to answer or get back to you soon because they know that you work with them in the right way. When those challenges do come up, that really does go a long, long way into finding solutions. And then the compliance itself, right? It builds credibility. It builds credibility with you as a business. With especially if they're more discerning consumers, they are looking out for those things. It strengthens opportunities when you go and you sit down with retailers, with potential new buyers. They're probably going to have questions about, are you compliant? Do you adhere to good manufacturing practices or good agricultural practices? Um, what regulatory agencies do you work with, right? So questions like that might come up, and the more time that you spend with your regulators, getting to understand how all of this works, and they become partners, the better suited you'll be for those conversations. All right, so I'm very, very excited to introduce you all to our presenters here this afternoon. Um, we have a good range of not just experience and knowledge, but also geography covered here today. We have three folks from three different states, which is pretty cool. Joining us from West Virginia to talk about cottage food law will be Kacey Gantzer, the technical lead and planning coordinator with the West Virginia Department of Agriculture. So really excited to hear from Kacey, someone that I've known and worked with for a long time. Joining us from Ohio uh, is Allyssa Hedges. She's going to be talking about state licensed meat processing. Allyssa is the training development EIAO with the Ohio Department of Agriculture Division of Meat Inspection. So I'm really excited to hear what Alyssa is going to share with you all. And then finally, joining us from Virginia is Adam Pendleton to discuss Food Hub and Herb Hub certification. Adam is with Appalachian Sustainable Development. He's the Appalachian Harvest General Manager. And then, as always, we want to leave some time at the end for Q&A and maybe some more resources as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close or stop sharing my screen with you all. With that, I am going to pass it over to Kacey to tell you all some more about cottage food law.
I'm desperately trying to unmute and share my screen at the same time. So let me share again. So just so you know, my job at the Department of Ag is to help people through these food regulations and all of that great kind of stuff. My PowerPoint is just refusing to show up under my share. Let's see if I can share my screen. I'm so sorry. So I'm going to talk about the things that you can sell from your home or farm business. I'm not kidding you. My PowerPoint has disappeared. So in West Virginia, I just want to say first, in West Virginia, we have very specific laws that unfortunately don't carry over everywhere else. Here in West Virginia, we have what we call some cottage food laws. And when we are selling, I promise I'm trying to get it up here. I can't believe it's not opening. Isn't this fun? We just talked about how fun Zoom is. All
I
right,
did
we
see
got
it
it now?
first. I did see it for a second. Yeah, it seemed like it was there and then it went
Okay,
away.
there we go. I'm so sorry for the delay. We got it? Am I showing?
Yes, looks good.
Okay. Oh my goodness, I can't believe that just happened. I always joke about how that happens to everyone. All right, from the beginning, West Virginia cottage food laws. Here in West Virginia, you can sell non-potentially hazardous foods anywhere within the state. I will say this does not mean these foods can be used by restaurants within the state. So let's say you have a restaurant who wants to carry your strawberry jam. They can sell it there with your properly labeled product, but they're not able to open that jam and sell it on a piece of toast. So you are kind of limited in a sales outlet that it is going directly to your consumer. Our next level, we have vendor permitted potentially hazardous foods. This is incredibly exciting for producers here within the state. This opens up an entire different category of food sales that is allowed. But you must be selling at a registered farmers market. Now, those can be online farmers markets, mobile, traditional, consignment, and on-farm stands. But to sell potentially hazardous foods produced in your home kitchen, they do have to stay at a registered farmers market. Our next level is poultry and rabbit exemptions. I'm just going to touch on that for a minute because that, again, is another unique way to sell off-farm here in West Virginia. And as far as services, we offer food product label reviews based on our FDA standards and our additional home disclaimer. This is a free service we offer at the Department of Ag. We review those labels and then we give you a label review certificate. So this, again, is peace of mind for your customer, for your insurance agent, for fellow producers, down to your farmers market manager. This is showing that your customer is correctly informed about the product they are buying. And at the Department of Ag, we offer all different types of technical assistance. We're here to help you demystify this process. So the thing people usually want to know about is, what can I sell with absolutely no permits, no inspections, nothing? What can I start selling today? Well, the answer is non-potentially hazardous foods. Those are here in green on our farmers market vendor guide. I will provide everyone with links. Almost all of your questions are answered in this guide, but sometimes it can be difficult to tease out exactly what you need to know. So these non-potentially hazardous foods in green, again, can be sold anywhere within the state of West Virginia. Your customer can come from out of state and purchase it, and these do not have to be sold at registered farmers markets. So these could be at a mom and pop grocery store. These could be at a craft show. You could sell them out of your home. You are just limited by state boundaries. If we look at the bottom of this page, this is usually what people want to sell, and this is what they're calling me about. These are potentially hazardous foods. Your acidified foods like pickles, your cut produce, your meats, salsas, sauces, everything in that category. We are really lucky here in West Virginia to have an exemption that some of these potentially hazardous foods can be made in a home kitchen with additional permitting. So let's stick first to non-potentially hazardous foods. The number one thing you need to know is the way you are regulated is by the label. The label is everything. This is informing your customer that this was made in a home kitchen that may have cross-contact allergens. This is the way people know exactly what is in this food and where it is being made. And that label also allows us at the Department of Agriculture, if there would ever be an issue, to come back to your home kitchen where these products were produced. They can't have any time and temperature control. What does that mean? They don't have to be refrigerated. They're not acidified. These are your most basic of food items, your cookies. We have a cool extra addition. We can do canned tomatoes. Other than traditional jams, canned tomatoes is about the only other shelf-stable canned product you can sell. But again, you can start selling these right away. No inspection and no permitting. There's no cost. Now, should you have a business license? Absolutely. Should you be insured? Absolutely. A home food business is no different than any other business. It is a business. And let's remember, we're selling food to people. This is where we need to be the most cautious. I get a lot of calls from people who think they're exempt from taxes and other regulations because they're producing in a home. You are a business like any other business. All right, potentially hazardous foods. This is the one everybody wants to know about. Very few people call me asking how they can sell a jar of tomatoes. They want to know how they can sell spaghetti sauce. They don't most likely want to do refrigerator pickles. They want to sell shelf-stable pickles. In West Virginia, you can do that from a home kitchen. Now, you will need to take better process control school. You will need a home kitchen inspection. You will need process authority for every recipe. Just as if you were working out of a food manufacturing kitchen, really the only true difference is you were in your home kitchen. You also need a farmer's market vendor permit, which is $35, and that kitchen inspection is $27. That is pretty low barrier to entry. And you're going to get that process authority. And if you decide to grow your business and move into a food manufacturing kitchen, you already have process authority. You've already taken better process control school. You're already testing the water supply at your home if you're using well water. You're already getting a label review from the Department of Agriculture saying you're meeting FDA standards of labeling. In West Virginia, we have the additional label if it's in a home kitchen, but you are well on your way as a stepping stone to growing that business with this kind of in-between opportunity. Again, we offer a product label review. I know this all can be so overwhelming. I can help you from the front end. We go step by step. But even if you turn your label review in and you've unfortunately missed a sub-ingredient or you forgot to put the net weight, they're going to simply come back and help you fix that label. We're not going to say, sorry, you no longer can sell salsa. You forgot to put the ounces. We're here to help you. This is a label review. This is not a label approval. And this is a free service we provide within the state. If you are selling any potentially hazardous food, it is already required. But we offer it as a free service for non-potentially hazardous foods in addition. And if you want to join our branding program, West Virginia Grown, you will also receive a label review. Couple other quick opportunities. There is no permitting cost to sell eggs at registered farmers markets in West Virginia or from your home. You simply have to register as a small egg producer, which there is no fee to do so. In West Virginia, we have a pretty amazing exempt poultry law. We have both a 1,000 and a 20,000 bird exemption. And yes, that is correct. 20,000 birds can be processed on farm, sold within the state of West Virginia. Again, these are not birds that can leave the state, but they can go wholesale, they can go restaurant, they can go retail. So within the state of West Virginia, there are very few limitations on where this exempt poultry could be sold. And a 20,000 limit is an opportunity for some real business. And again, lets you start at an entry level without any permitting and fees or inspections. We also offer the same for rabbits. The difference with rabbits is we go straight to that 20,000 exemption. This is on farm, again, sold to restaurants, wholesale, retail, anywhere within the state. The big difference is if you are selling rabbits, the registration is required. It's a free registration, but there is no fee. We do keep track of those rabbits. With the poultry, it's a voluntary registration. Also, the West Virginia Farmers Market Association, we have 3 poultry trailers. These are $26,000 trailers equipped with scalders, pluckers, everything you need. And those can be rented for less than $50 a day if you would like to take advantage of that poultry exemption. Now, I know that was a ton of information because I wanted to keep it to 10 minutes, but I just really wanted to hit on that there are lots of opportunities for small business growth within West Virginia. And we have a lot of people here to help you do that the right way. We don't want to jump right into maybe a food manufacturing permit when there might be another option for you when getting started in business. Do I have any questions? Sorry about the screen sharing.
That's all right. I think we're going to wait. So at the end, we're going to do some Q&A. That was awesome, Kacey. Thank you so much. So with that, we're going to go ahead and pass it along to Allyssa Hedges, who's going to talk to us about state licensed meat processing in Ohio.
Okay, so I'm going to work on trying to share my screen. We'll see how long it takes me. Are we good?
Looks good.
Okay, so like you said, I am Allyssa Hedges from the Ohio Department of Agriculture's Division of Meat Inspection. I am currently the training officer, but I started as a meat inspector in the Central Ohio region. And then I became an EIAO, stands for Enforcement Investigations and Analysis Officer, where I travel around the state and did food safety assessments at any state licensed facility that we have. And now I am part of the training program. So I'm going to start out with who we are. This is our mission statement. So the Ohio Department of Agriculture's Division of Meat Inspection operates as a public health regulatory agency to protect the consumer by ensuring meat and poultry products are safe, wholesome, and truthfully labeled. So what do we do? For the facilities we inspect, which I'll go through the ones that need inspection and which ones don't, we do perform daily inspection verifications anytime inspected product is produced. We ensure fully inspected facilities are operating under an acceptable food safety program. This is often considered a HACCP program, if you're familiar with those terms. We ensure every establishment, including custom establishments, are operating under an acceptable sanitation program, and we enforce sanitation regulations throughout the industry. So we inspect both slaughterhouses and processing facilities. So during slaughter inspection, our inspectors must be present for the entire slaughter process. So that's from inspecting all the live animals to when the last carcass is pushed into the cooler. During antemortem inspection, we inspect the live animals prior to being slaughtered, and any animals that exhibit abnormal signs are withheld from normal slaughter and segregated for closer examination. We have veterinarians that are notified of any disease conditions that are observed, and they will come and perform final dispositions on those carcasses. We also perform humane handling, or we verify humane handling requirements both before and during the slaughter process. And our post-mortem inspection of all carcasses involves cutting, palpating, examining numerous sets of lymph nodes in the head, the viscera, and on the carcass. And we also palpate many organs and muscles, check for disease and contamination throughout. So additional procedures are conducted by the facilities for any cattle over 30 months of age, as they are considered higher risk for certain diseases. So this is why you might hear, oh, you can only get boneless steaks if you take in a beef, like a dairy cow that's over 30 months of age. During our processing inspection, our inspectors verify establishments are following the procedures and record keeping requirements of their food safety systems. So this could be reviewing cooking and chilling records, observing plant employees taking temperatures of products, verifying that all their thermometers are calibrated. Another big thing, like Kacey pointed out, was we verify product labels for accuracy with both product formulations and source ingredients. So if they're getting cheese that they are putting in a sausage, we are checking the label on the cheese product and making sure all of those ingredients are then transferred to the final label. We verify facility compliance with sanitation regulations and conduct routine and intensified sampling for antibiotic residues that's on carcasses, and then E. coli, Listeria, Salmonella, and Campylobacter sampling on both carcasses and final product. So how are we different than other health agencies? Because this is the biggest thing. Whose jurisdiction is it? So we work very closely with USDA FSIS, which is the Food Safety Inspection Service. We operate under a cooperative agreement with FSIS to enforce their same requirements. We have to be at least equal to the feds. So we are basically the state version of USDA FSIS. So each state can have its own program or be under federal inspection. Like West Virginia, I believe, has a state meat inspection program. I don't think Pennsylvania does. So that's why some states you will only have federal inspected product, and some states have state and federal. Federally inspected facilities can ship across state lines and export to other countries. ODA Division of Food Safety is also obviously within the Ohio Department of Agriculture, and they inspect food warehouses and the production of non-meat products for resale, in addition to cold storage facilities. So at a place like ACEnet, if they were making a product that contained meat, like a meat pie, but they also wanted to make something just filled with cheese, they would have to be registered with both the Division of Meat Inspection and the Division of Food Safety. And then another one, the biggest one I would say, is the local health department. They are the one that inspects retail facilities and facilities that sell directly to the end consumer. So we do not perform inspections at Kroger or Walmart. We are more on the wholesale side, which I'll go over. Okay, so product produced under our state program can only be sold within state lines. Right now, Ohio has 192 fully inspected facilities and 83 custom exempt facilities. However, 48 of those fully inspected facilities operate under the Cooperative Interstate Shipment Program. So the ones in the CIS program are allowed to ship across state lines. And those facilities must operate the same as a federal grant of inspection. However, they cannot be exported unless the producing facility has an agreement with the receiving country. And at this time, none of our CIS facilities in Ohio are eligible to export. So what's the difference of inspection legend? So when you're picking up product from Ohio, products that have an inspection legend that's shaped like the state of Ohio are state inspected, are fully inspected in the state, and can only be sold within the state of Ohio. So red meat, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but the one that's kind of curved is for poultry, and the one that's straight is red meat. The ones in the circle legend but have SEOH, which stands for Selected Establishment Ohio, or SEPOH, which is Selected Establishment Poultry Ohio. Those were produced under the CIS program and can be shipped anywhere in the United States. And products containing the triangle legend are produced under voluntary inspection and can be shipped across state lines. Okay, so the types of state inspected facilities, we have fully inspected slaughter. Like I said, the inspector is present during the entire slaughter process. Fully inspected processing, our inspectors are there every day that they are producing product under inspection. And then we have custom exempt slaughter and or processing. This is where all finished product goes back to the owner of the animal. This is the one that most people are familiar with in a rural environment. So when I say the owner of the animal, technically every animal can have up to 4 owners. So if you're buying a quarter or half of beef, you are technically purchasing that quarter or half of the animal while it's alive. And then it is processed at the custom facility, and you are the owner that is going back to. So our inspectors inspect those facilities about once every other week, and all product must be labeled not for sale. So obviously none of that product can be sold because it's labeled not for sale. Voluntary inspection, this is inspection of non-amenable species, and those are specified in the Federal Meat Inspection Act, but those products can be shipped across state lines. So amenable just means it requires inspection by FSIS or the Division of Meat Inspection. So for red meat, that would be cattle, hogs, sheep, and goats. For poultry, chicken, turkeys, ducks, geese, guinea, squab, which is apparently a young domestic pigeon. Didn't know that, had to look it up. Ratites, which are ostrich, emu, and rhea. Voluntary species, so there is an hourly charge for voluntary species. And that for red meat, it is bison, water buffalo, camelids, rabbits, and captive raised deer, not wild deer. And then poultry, pheasant, quail, partridge, peafowl, grouse, wild turkey, captive raised wild turkey, and captive raised waterfowl. So I don't think I went over this anywhere, but to be fully inspected, our licensing, well, actually fully inspected or custom exempt, our licensing fee is $100 a year. And that is the only amount we charge unless you go on overtime, and that is separate. But voluntary species is an hourly charge in addition to the $100 licensing fee. Okay, so who requires inspection? Any facility that harvests animals for anyone other than themselves, members of their household, and non-paying guests. So any facilities producing at least 3% raw or 2% cooked meat products that are being wholesaled. So these are selling of the goods to be retailed by others. Again, not selling to the direct consumer. And anyone interested in processing meat or poultry products are required to be inspected under a meat inspection program, either state or federal, unless they can demonstrate they meet one of the recognized exemptions. So we have similar exemptions to West Virginia, it sounds like. I guess I was thinking of the poultry. We have similar poultry ones with the 1,000 and 20,000 bird and under, but I did not go into that much detail in this. But custom operator, like I said, all finished product goes back to the owner. Product is marked not for sale. They are still responsible for sanitation, record keeping, and product adulteration. So our inspectors still go in, make sure everything is clean. They have to perform a pre-op before they start operations. We are still in there every other week to make sure everything's good. Personal use. You got a cow, you want to kill it, you want to eat it for your family, go ahead. that is exempt from meat inspection. And then retail restaurants. So facilities can sell to hotels, restaurants, and institutions, basically if they're going to further process it under a certain dollar amount set by FSIS, but they cannot be wholesaled. So they can't sell to a hotel that then puts it out for sale in their lobby without being inspected. So most retail facilities fall under the jurisdiction of the local health department as they are selling to the end consumer. That seems to be the biggest question we get, is whether or not they need full inspection or they can be licensed by the health department. So I just have links to resources. Like I said, we follow FSIS regulations. So the fsis.usda.gov website is great for regulatory information. If you want more information about being licensed with Division of Meat Inspection or labeling, anything for the state program, we have our website, which I have, well, it looks like this: resources, questions, licenses, what you need for a license, forms, labels, etc. All on our website, which is very helpful. But if you have any questions, like specific questions, or you are interested in opening a state inspected meat facility, I would either call our division directly or send an email to meet@agri.ohio.gov, and then they will get you in touch with the district supervisor in the area where your facility is going to be operating. So, any questions for me?
Again, I think we're going to hold questions to the end, but thank you so much, Alyssa. That was awesome. So much great information. I'm hoping, and everybody that's presenting today, if we could get these, if we're able to share with the group after, we'll get the information from you. But there's so much good information in there about meat processing, about cottage food law, that I want people to have a chance to digest. So thank you so much. Alyssa, and then just encourage people to keep putting questions in the chat. I've been recording them so that we can circle back and get to them at the end. And with that, let's go ahead and pass it along to our third presenter, Adam Pendleton with Appalachian Sustainable Development. He is, again, the Appalachian Harvest General Manager, and Adam is going to share with us some information about Food Hub, Herb Hub certification.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Well, so I'm just going to be talking because my PowerPoint that I tried to put together last night did not save. So just have to listen to me, I guess. But like Adam said, I'm the general manager here at Appalachian Sustainable Development. The Food Hub, we're located in Duffield, Virginia. I guess just listening to the other speakers, something that kind of hit me that's definitely different for us right off the bat is we are mainly produce. And it's kind of weird to think about, but most of the certifications for us and the food safety regulations are completely buyer driven. So it's not a state or a federal law necessarily that's forcing us to do it, which I guess makes it a little trickier when you're thinking about it from the produce side of things. So it's just depends on your markets and your outlets is really what drives the certifications you're going to need at the end of the day. And then to get into those a little bit, I guess one thing that would be an outlier on that is FSMA. I don't know how many people's familiar with that, but that's the Food Safety Modernization Act. It's not really a certification, I guess. You do get certified for it, but it's not a third-party audit that you're going to request like the rest of the ones in produce typically are. But FSMA applies to any producer that has a commodity on the produce that is considered a non-covered product, which is if they're rarely consumed raw. So like if you think about winter squash or pumpkins, things like that, that's typically going to be consumed after being cooked, then you wouldn't have to worry about it if that's all you're growing. But if you're doing tomatoes, peppers, onions, any of those kind of things, then you're probably, I don't think they've got around to everybody yet, but you're definitely at some point probably going to end up having a FSMA inspector show up. And the only other way really around that is if you're pretty small and you're going to the farmers markets. I believe it's still 26,000 is the threshold on that. So if you're selling under $26,000, then you kind of fall into that category. But that's more on the grower side. At least in Virginia, it's just now starting to really roll out onto the food hubs. We had our first inspection on that one this year. Before it was basically just if you were growing product, and now they've kind of changed that to if you're growing, packing, or storing product. The inspector for our area, her supervisors want her to start getting around to all the facilities that fall into that category. So that was our first year having to have the FSMA inspection. But really, if you're already doing some of the other ones, which is like GAP, Harmonized GAP, Global GAP, Primus, you're in pretty good shape for those audits. As far as the FSMA goes, there's not a ton of differences. The other ones are probably more complex. So our facility here is Harmonized GAP, and that stands for Good Agricultural Practices, which is going to cover everything from, again, it's buyer driven, but it's going to cover everything from the producer that's actually harvesting the products and growing it in the field all the way through to the facility that's handling it and doing the deliveries of it. We're also organic, which isn't really food safety, but there's some pieces that kind of touch that way on it. It makes it a little more tricky for us because we do have to be sure and keep those items separated and make sure there's no co-mingling and things like that happens. And then again, I said the FSMA. We've recently started handling meat the past couple years. And typically we'll have somebody with the FDA and USDA drop by a couple times and do a walkthrough, but those aren't the typical paid inspections like we're having to do on the produce side. So like for us, we're working with about 30 or 40 growers, and all of those producers do have to be certified as well with it. At minimum is GAP. A couple of our buyers has kind of bumped that up and they're really wanting harmonized now. But your producers will have to have that as well to be able to sell into the markets that's requiring that. And some of the things, I guess to think about if you're looking at trying to find a facility that may work for this, the things that come to mind right off the bat that are pretty important is there's going to be quite a bit of water testing. So you're going to have to either have municipal water is obviously the easiest one to go with. If that's not available, if it's a well, it's going to have to have testing, which is also required through the FSMA, and you're going to have to, find some way to get that through. If you don't have a good clean water source, then you're really going to struggle to get through any of these audits. And I imagine that's probably the case on, the meat side or anything, but definitely for the produce, that's probably the biggest thing that's going to knock you. I know some growers that's got packing facilities that are getting by with open side sheds. That's not really ideal. It leaves a lot of opportunity for birds and other rodents to come in and cause issues as far as the products go. So I'm not going to say you can't get by like that, but I would say enclosed is definitely ideal so you can cut down on the rodent issues and stuff entering the facility. And then, probably the biggest thing for us here at our facility is record keeping. There's a lot of records to keep. Cleaning logs is a big one. Some of the things that come to mind on that is our coolers, our bathrooms, our trucks. We do offer grading lines at our facilities, and those do have to be cleaned in between each use of producers, as well as I mentioned, we do conventional and organic. So it's going to have a cleaning in between that and products just to cut down on any kind of commingling between growers, but also, if there's hopefully not, but if there's any kind of foodborne issues that go on, just trying to minimize anything getting passed through onto that. Floors, tables, any kind of contact surface is going to have to be cleaned basically after every use. And as all the inspectors we've ever had here will say, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. So you can be the cleanest facility in the area, and if you don't have those records, that it's not going to get you very far. They're really, really key on having good record keeping. Pest control, that's another big thing. So they're pretty adamant on that. I think we have about 30 or 40 traps around the facility, and those have to be checked and changed on a weekly basis is how ours is written up. And I guess, SOPs, so the standard operating procedures, is probably one of the biggest things that I've seen inspectors get a little worked up over. You really want to make sure when you're going through and writing those that you're putting in there what you're actually doing. If you have something that doesn't match up to what you're actually doing at your facility, they're going to ding you every time. I've seen that happen on the farms, in the facilities. They're really nitpicky for whatever reason about making sure that those SOPs are right and you're following the procedures that you have written down. And same way on the timeliness of it, you have to, if you say you're doing something weekly, then you better be doing it weekly. If it's just weekly during your growing season, then it better say that, or you're going to have some major issues when it comes to those inspections. But yeah, again, like I say, the biggest thing with food safety on the produce side is it is buyer driven, and there's different levels of it that I mentioned: the GAP, harmonized, the global, and the Primus. And the biggest thing is you just need to get with your buyer up front and see what you're going to have for their requirements, and definitely bring them into that on the front end, because it's completely buyer driven, which is very different from some of these other inspections. If there's any questions, but yeah, that's kind of about the produce side and the facilities.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. We appreciate all that great intel. And I would just, echo the piece. There's a lot of great stuff in there that Adam shared, but the record keeping, especially with FSMA, everything needs to be documented. I know this is definitely true on the meat processing side. If you're going to say in your HACCP plan that you're doing something, you better be doing it. Everything that's in there needs to be documented. So make sure that there's carry through there. So yeah, Alyssa gave me the 100% in the chat. Appreciate that, Alyssa. So I want to go ahead and create some time here for questions. And there was one question that I put up here on the screen that was in the chat earlier. I think that was directed at Kacey. The question, Kacey: we sell in West Virginia, but are located in Pennsylvania. Does this change any rules for us?
What a loaded question. So remember, there is no legal reciprocity between any state for non-potentially hazardous cottage foods. Okay. So there is nowhere on the books that says, if I make it in Pennsylvania, it's legal in West Virginia, or if I make it in West Virginia, it's legal in Pennsylvania. Is it allowed in many circumstances? Yes. Is it not in many others? This year alone, I've had 4 people kicked out of Ohio. Ohio isn't having it. You are not going to Ohio with your West Virginia cookies. They're going to kick you right out. But you might get away with it at a few farmers markets. So our guidance at the West Virginia Department of Ag, I'm going to read you verbatim. It says, non-potentially hazardous foods made in West Virginia may be sold across state lines if they are in compliance with federal and state regulations. You must contact the state in which you are selling. Here in West Virginia, if you are making your products and you want to sell them at a registered West Virginia farmers markets and they are non-potentially hazardous according to our standards. Remember, every state has their own standards of what they consider to be non-potentially hazardous. We allow it at registered farmers markets, but you're going to have to follow our labeling standards, which are the highest level of any of our bordering states. Remember, we're requiring an FDA label and a very, very specific home kitchen disclaimer. So if that's coming from a home kitchen in Pennsylvania, you are going to be expected to label it the way we require it, which says it's made in a home kitchen that may not be subject to inspection and may have cross-contact allergens not listed in the allergen statement. Why? In your home kitchen, I don't know if your kid made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the morning and didn't clean it up. And then you decided to roll out dough for your sourdough for the farmer's market, and you did not label peanuts anywhere on that product. We cannot guarantee that from a home kitchen. So that's why we are so strict on our labeling. So again, if you are selling into a West Virginia registered farmers market, we're going to allow it. But let's say you're going to a craft show in Hancock County, West Virginia, and you're coming from Pennsylvania, you technically need to call that county health department. because it is up to them truly whether or not they allow that product. Kentucky is also very strict. I get a lot of West Virginia cookies getting kicked out of West Virginia because truly there is no law that is there to guard you to cross state lines with those products. Sorry, that was a long answer.
It was great. It was detailed, informative. That was awesome. So Kraft had a question, which I think, Kacey, you kind of answered here a little bit, about how to ensure that your product is compliant to sell across state lines. I think it really does come down to, going back on Kacey's point, checking both with the state that you're in, the state that you intend to sell into. Generally here in Ohio, that means working with the ODA Division of Food Safety. If you are able to fall and be compliant under their licensing and have a product that meets their requirements, meets the FDA labeling guidelines, it should be fine to sell across state lines unless it is a meat product, right? Unless it falls under the purview of meat. In that case, you're going to have to go under either the CIS program that Allyssa spoke about here in Ohio, Cooperative Interstate Shipment Program, or USDA, or Federal Inspected Processing. And you need to make those products in a commercial licensed facility as well, a place like ACEnet, or you have to go through the process of licensing. Besides the exceptions that Kacey talked about for West Virginia and some cottage food, there are exceptions, but generally here in Ohio for home produced foods, not a lot of flexibility there. Does anybody have anything they want to add to that response to that question? Okay. I guess I covered it. Anybody else? Any other questions? Please put them in the chat. Once again, we do have a few more minutes left. Leslie asks, do we ever think the adjoining states will align their standards? This is challenging with the Ohio River Valley. That's a loaded question as well.
That has been my single-handed goal for the last 8 years, and it has been so difficult. It's every time we get close to it, everybody seems to back up. The problem is that the legal boundaries of it make it so difficult. Yeah. So we in West Virginia can't go inspect in Ohio and vice versa. So that reciprocity is going to have like a lot of levels of trust. And we got to look in some states, it's health departments, and other ones, it's Department of Agriculture's. Even those, the regulating authorities don't even match up state to state. So that would be a huge feat. I think it would have to start one state at a time. To get a tri-state, that would be impressive.
I agree with that. Plus, we have a lot of specific Ohio laws that apparently take years to change. So even if they did come to an agreement, it would take a long time to get them on the legal books, per se.
Yeah, and it was a huge win for Ohio to become one of those CIS states, to be able to move meat from state to state while still remaining under ODA purview. So, yeah, it's almost like these states are doing things kind of on their own, but the more chances we have to sort of align, I think the better as well. So Della had a question: are there special guidelines for baked goods? I mean, as far as cottage foods go, I think that's like one thing that is probably unanimous across most states for cottage food laws, that baked goods are going to be featured, which means you can produce them at home as long as the baked goods themselves do not contain any hazardous ingredients. Allergens are always of concern with baked goods, making sure that we're making claims, putting a wheat claim on there for allergens, anything else that could be of allergen concern. Kacey, will this be a chance to talk about pepperoni rolls, perhaps?
Another of my favorite topics. So here in West Virginia, there are 2 different types of pepperoni rolls that are allowed at 2 different types of locations. If you are selling a pepperoni roll at a registered farmer's market, it can have meat and cheese. If you are selling pepperoni rolls at a non-registered farmer's market, it can have meat. But don't put meat in bread and don't put cheese in bread. But if it is the combo of the 2 and the pepperoni is not visible, we have an exemption here in the state. I know that sounds great. So don't put pepperoni in sourdough bread because that's not a pepperoni roll and it's not exempt. And as far as like baked goods, it does vary a little bit. I want to say be cautious again, state to state. I noticed fried Fruit pies not allowed in Ohio under non-potentially hazardous. Very much allowed, got its own line in the vendor guide here in West Virginia. So we're good with the fried fruit pies. Ohio is not. So that's why you have to be so incredibly careful. It can vary that differently state by state. But pepperoni roll friendly, West Virginia registered farmers markets. That's where you're going to get your best pepperoni roll.
And I could be wrong, but I think pepperoni rolls is something very specifically exempted from meat inspection.
It is so specific. So if you get down into the law, it talks about the visibility of the pepperoni. If you can see the pepperoni, it's a sandwich and it's no longer exempt here, at least. Is that the same for Ohio? Can't see that pepperoni?
I believe that's correct, and don't even get me started on sandwiches, because sandwiches, if there is meat between two slices of bread, it is exempt from meat inspection. But if you send the meat separate from the buns or the bread, it requires meat inspection. So there's a lot that goes into all of this.
We have one if it's more than 35% meat. So it's like a sausage sandwich, but the percentage of meat triggers the additional inspection. So again, there's a lot to learn, and that's why we don't just jump into things. Yeah. Or we don't just purchase a kitchen or purchase a piece of equipment until we really find out what we need to do.
Yeah, and same thing with us for labeling purposes. Being able to label things. Some things require a certain percentage of meat. Some things have a percentage limit on certain things. So if there's a lot of specific things to look into, yes, before you go ahead and buy some land and you're going to build something, or just go ahead and start ordering stuff. There's a lot to look into.
And again, pepperoni is not a basic ingredient. There are ingredients in pepperoni. And I am the pepperoni label police at the moment because I want people to understand there are so many different types of pepperoni, and some may have food dyes and some may have additives. And that's about to be a huge issue when we're labeling our food. So remember, if you're a cottage food producer and you write down chocolate chips, most likely, unless you were buying gluten-free, there's soy in those chocolate chips. Chocolate chips, again, is not an ingredient. So we got to think about those things even at the home-based food level.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then here in Ohio, and I need to check in on this, but I know we've been monitoring this bill that has been put on the House floor that would basically, I mean, it would even make our cottage food law more open than y'all's in West Virginia. Like this would allow people to do just about anything at home without much benefit of inspection or anything. So it's really going to change. I think there's been a recent push from some people who work in food health or in public health and food safety kind of against this bill lately, but I need to check in and see where it's at, because as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's going to change things completely. So something to continue to monitor here in Ohio for sure. All right. Does anyone else have any more questions for our group? If you do, put them in the chat. If not, that's okay. What's important to remember, and if there's one, I think, takeaway from this conversation, is that these folks are resources. All right. They're resources for you now, the resources for you into the future as your business continues to grow. As you encounter challenges, right? Do not hesitate to reach out to your local health inspector, to your regional department of ag, whoever your inspector is. If you don't know who that person is, figure out who that person is. That's a big piece of advice I always give folks. Figure out who the right person is to be your go-to person, I guess I would say, for your product. We will make sure that these resources are made available that were shared today. Slideshows, resources beyond that. There's been some great stuff being put in the chat as well. And yeah, I think we will call it at that. Thanks for your time, everyone.
I would just let everybody know that next month we will be doing understanding how to create an FDA value-added product. So the rules continue. So
awesome.
Thank you all for presenting. This was really informative, and thanks, Adam, for being the MC.
Thank you.
Thanks all.